Hi friends, this is the book that we're going to talk about today, and for very simple reasons. As I go next into my history series and I think of history and the people who shaped history, most historians would absolutely agree that there is one man who has been most influential in the last 1000 years, and his name, by undisputedness, is this man, Genghis Khan. There are debates about whether he or Jesus were more influential in world history. That is the level of his influence on history. Now, a lot of us have no idea about the influence of the man and what he achieved beyond his name. I begin by explaining a few simple facts. He ruled the largest man empire in history. His successors took it, to such a limit that Alexander's empire or Napoleon's empire looked puny in return. Okay, in terms of landmass, I think it was bigger than the British ever ruled. This man, actually called Temujin, started on in the steppes of Mongolia with a small bit of very small tribe. In fact, he was not even a leader of a tribe. He was just small, nothing, with a few followers, who went on to control one tribe, then others, then built up uh, and kind of an alliance of tribes. Spend a good amount of years, I think, till around the age of 40 or something, just establishing himself as a tribal chief. Now, considering that he did not come from any major royal roots and he began from the bottom, that in itself would have been a very, very big achievement. You see, he had achieved what very few in those generation age and generations could have achieved. He could easily have rested in his laurels. And 40 was a very, 40 something was a very ripe old age then. So it was almost seemed that he struggled for the 15, 20 odd years and he's reached this point. But very few people could have predicted that this struggle was just beginning. Genghis then modernized the Mongols, broke the tribal loyalties, set them into formations of like 10, 100,000, the kind of formation that are still followed in armies all over the world, battalions and squadrons and all, without realizing that this was probably begun by this man Genghis Khan. This man then had created a very potent force. These Mongol tribes, which used to roam around Mongolia and have no military power and nothing to offer the world, then were unleashed on world's mega empires, whether it be China, whether it be Persia, whether it be the whole what do you call Islamic empire, whether it be Eastern Europe, Russia, what was then Russia, or actually there was still not properly anything called Russia, but the area of Russia, reaching all the way to Eastern Europe and Hungary and all, and threatening Christendom. At one point, even trying to think whether he wanted to come to India. So he almost remained undefeated in his entire lifetime. His successors took this empire to these limits, and they, for 200 odd years, they ruled from one end of the earth, that is from China, to all the way to Egypt and Eastern Europe, and nothing could beat them. They had a way of fighting wherein they ran back sometimes, and when they were going, these guys were such experienced archers that without looking, while going forward, they could just point their bow and arrow towards the back and shoot the people running after them. It is that that gives the English language the word parting shot. So it is said that when Genghis Khans and their followers unleashed themselves, they created huge amount of destruction. That's very true. They were known for creating pillars of heads in the cities that refused to, give up without a fight. It is said that he famously said to the king, I think, of Baghdad or something, that he was the scourge of God. Genghis Khan's and the Mongols are said to be responsible for bringing the plague to Europe when along with their horses. The Mongols were supposed to be so unhygienic that they would put raw animal skins over their horse and sit on top of them and eat that same thing. So yes, and they used known to be rarely ever bathe. So it was almost like some sort of a subhuman race had been unleashed on the mega empires, the civilizations of the world, destroying libraries, destroying cultures as they went along, all the way from the Song dynasty to in China to the old Islamic Caliphate to the Eastern Europe, and almost crushing Christianity. The only reason they did not crush Europe and Christianity was that it's believed that when that happened, the Khan died, and so whoever the generals were and the sons, they had to rush back because the new Khan had to be selected. The word Khan is not, by the way, coming from any Arabs or the Iranians. The word Khan means great leader in Mongolia. So the word Khan, by the way, it comes from Genghis Khan. It is supposed that Genghis has probably millions of progeny, in today's world, because he had so many wives and concubines, and then his followers ruled such large portions of the world that probably so many people today are descendants of Genghis Khan. More than that, there are other good points also. Genghis was known to be probably one of the first truly secular ruler in those parts of the world. Genghis was not bothered while they ruled, they worshipped the sky god. They were not really bothered whether you worshipped in form of Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or anything. I mean, he was known to be engaging with all sorts of priests, and everyone tried their luck to convert him. He was only interested in life longevity and eternal life or something. He had power, money, but the later part of his life went into trying to find the secret of eternal life. So his rulers, his followers and his children also created huge empires and changed the world as we know it, and that has to go to him credit. For example, Kublai was the man who unified China in its present geography. That is why China considers Kublai as their own, though he was a Mongol who conquered China, because it is him who consolidated this current big map of China. Otherwise, the western part was separate and all of this. So China considers Kublai its own very smartly, because Kublai is responsible for having created the largest Chinese empire, bringing Manchuria and the southern Song and the western Islamic portions all together under one Chinese empire. It is his fear that consolidated these Rus principalities under the leadership of Moscow, the one principality which was saved from the Mongol impact. So Moscow became the leader, and therefore Moscow became the capital of the Russian tribes, and the Russian tribes consolidated to form Russia. It was the fear that one day the Mongols will return that made the Russians push eastward constantly into Siberia, and that is why, if you ever wondered why was Russia so big, and why was Russia always interested in the eastern part, the answer is very simple. The Russian physique and the Russian psyche is filled with dread that the eastern nomads will one day come and conquer. So they went eastwards before those guys could come in. That is why the Russian Empire later conquered all of these areas which had once been part of the Genghis Empire so that they could control them, so that one day they don't rise and try to conquer Russia. That's why, if you've known that the Soviet Union had this Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan and Kyrgyzstan, all of that, that is the reason for it. You know, all of these stans that were there, Turkmenistan, etc., etc. So all of this was because of Genghis. To the point, mind you, that a great grandson of Genghis, claiming because that he had royalty because of that, came and conquered India, and because he claimed that he had some lineage with Genghis, though he did not call himself, most people called him Mongol, which in India translated into a word called Mughal.